I bought a cardboard box of cassette tapes at a yard sale in Akron last spring. 42 tapes, all labeled with different names in different handwritings. I paid $2 for the box. The woman selling was clearing out her father's basement. I told her I collected analog audio. She laughed and gave me a third tape as a gift. That night I played the first one. The recording was of a phone call between two people I had never heard of. The second tape was the same recording. The third was the same. All 42 tapes contained the same phone call. The voices do not belong to anyone alive. The yard sale was on Lansing Avenue in Akron, Ohio. A small bungalow with a chain-link fence and a maple tree in the front yard. The woman selling was about 60. She told me her father had died in March. He had been a sound engineer for the local radio station for 40 years. The basement was full of cassettes, reel-to-reel, and broken recording equipment. She was throwing out what she could not sell. I bought the box because I liked the labels. Each one was handwritten in a different ink. Different pens. Different hands. Different decades. I paid in cash. She did not give me a receipt. I have a small analog audio collection. About 300 cassettes from estate sales, thrift stores, and yard sales since 2015. I keep them in milk crates in my living room. I play them on a Sony tape deck from 1987 that I restored 2 years ago. My collection is mostly mixtapes, demos from local bands, and amateur radio recordings. I catalog each tape. I write the label in a spreadsheet and rate the audio quality. I never expected the Akron box to be anything special. I assumed it was 42 amateur radio recordings, judging by the labels. I was wrong about the labels. The first tape was labeled in blue ballpoint pen. The name read Evelyn Rourke. The handwriting was careful, small, like someone who had written a great deal in a notebook. I loaded it into the Sony and pressed play. The audio began with about 3 seconds of tape hiss. Then a phone ringing. 3 rings. Then a click. Then a woman's voice answering and saying her name. The woman said she was Evelyn Rourke. The other voice was a man's. He sounded older. He told her he was sorry to call so late. She said it was fine. They began to talk. The conversation lasted 47 minutes. I assumed it was an amateur radio recording someone had made off a phone line. The recording was clean for an amateur job. The voices were distinct and unhurried. The man asked about Evelyn's daughter, who was sick. Evelyn told him the doctors had no diagnosis. She cried at one point. The man asked her to read aloud from a book she had been reading. She read a page. I let the tape play to the end. 47 minutes. The tape ran out mid-sentence. I rewound and tried the second tape. The label said Harris done in different handwriting. I pressed play. The recording was identical. I assumed I had grabbed 2 duplicates. The third tape was labeled Maria Quezada. The recording was the same. Tape hiss. 3 rings. Click. The woman's voice answering with the name Evelyn Rourke. I checked each of the 42 tapes that night. Every recording was identical. Same conversation. Same length. Same tape hiss at the start. The labels are all different names. Different pens. Different handwriting. The recording is one phone call. I called the local radio station to ask about the engineer. The receptionist had never heard of him. The station has no record of anyone with his name ever working there in any decade. I searched for Evelyn Rourke in public records. There was no woman by that name in Ohio. I checked Pennsylvania, Michigan, Indiana, New York. 3 Evelyn Rourkes in the country in 1970. None had a sick daughter. None lived at the address I could hear her mention on the tape. The address she gave was on Fountain Hill Road in Cuyahoga Falls. I drove there last August. The address does not exist. Fountain Hill Road runs from number 1 to number 84. The house number Evelyn mentioned was 122. I parked at the end of the street and walked. Empty lots past 84. I took 2 of the tapes to a sound engineer in Cleveland. She analyzed the audio for 2 weeks. The call was recorded from a phone line, not a microphone. The compression was specific to 1970s telephone audio. The voices were genuine, not synthesized. The hiss was identical across all 42 tapes. She also told me the conversation was not continuous. There were 17 small splice points in the audio. Someone had cut the recording into pieces and reassembled it. The pieces did not come from the same original conversation. They had been arranged to sound like one. The engineer played me a splice point slowed to a quarter speed. In the gap between 2 pieces, there was a third voice. A man's voice. Very quiet. He said only my name. My full first and middle name. He said it twice. I have never given my name to anyone connected to this tape. The yard sale woman did not ask. The sound engineer asked for it the day I brought the tapes in, after the analysis had started. The voice on the tape pronounced my middle name correctly. I do not. I had not heard it said aloud in 20 years. I have not played the tapes since November. They sit in the cardboard box in my living room. The Sony tape deck has been unplugged. I noticed last week that a cassette had moved from the bottom of the box to the top. The label on the new top tape was blank. The handwriting that should have been there was not. I opened the box and counted. 43 tapes now. The new tape has my own handwriting on a blank cassette I have not labeled. The label reads my full name. First. Middle. Last. I have not loaded it into the deck.